Welcome to Bold Voices, a production of the Community Foundation of Broward, where we explore Broward's biggest issues, get to know some of the people and organizations creating a bold impact in our community, and take a deeper dive into the world of local philanthropy with the experts at the Community Foundation of Broward. And now it's time to be bold.
Welcome once again to Bold Voices, the podcast production of the Community Foundation of Broward, now in its 41st year serving residents, nonprofits, and communities in Broward County. On a regular basis, they analyze how things are going and what are the greatest areas of need so they can create the most impact and positive change in our community. Improving health equity is one of the key areas that the Community Foundation focuses on, always working to make a range of services available to neighbors who might not otherwise have access. And much like the legacy funds they manage, the Community Foundation is always looking for ways to set things in motion that will be ongoing and have an impact literally forever. So this is the approach that they've taken with improving health equity in Broward. And to fill us in on some of the details of these health programs, I am so happy to have Sherry Brown Grosvenor, Vice President of Community Impact at the Foundation, with us on Bold Voices. Sherry, thank you for making time for us. I know how busy you are.
My pleasure, Ellen. Thank you for having me.
I wish I could have you every week on the show because you know so much. Not surprising, a little background. You're coming up on your 25th anniversary at the Community Foundation of Broward. And that says a lot about not just you, but also about the foundation and what it's like to be part of it and the work that they do. So just some quick background. What brought you to the foundation in the first place? And what is it about the work that keeps you passionate after all this time?
Well, thank you for that question. What brought me to the Community Foundation nearly 25 years ago was the mission, and it continues to be the mission, which is to provide leadership and impact our community at a level that I could not have impacted this community otherwise. I started my career in education, and I thought that's where I would end my career in education. However, something just tugged at me and said, you know what, there's a bigger world out there, and maybe I should pursue something that would allow me to enlarge my impact. And so I landed at the Community Foundation of Broward, initially to run the Nonprofit Resource Center. And I was promoted from that director position to the vice president position after a couple of years. And I've been pretty steady in this position since then. But what keeps me here is my passion for this community. I love Broward County. Yeah. I was born and raised here in Broward County. I matriculated through the Broward County Public Schools. My parents were born and raised in Broward, and my father built his business here in Broward many years ago in the construction industry. So this is home for me. I went away to college, to Florida A&M University, and achieved my degree, but I came back home, and I had options to go other places, but I wanted to come back home.
The impact you're making really is amazing. And so what are some of your responsibilities as Vice President of Community Impact?
Wow. So my position here at the foundation is very robust, I would say. First and foremost, I am responsible for overseeing the foundation's leadership and grant making. We grant now, I think this year we're going to hit probably close to $25 million a year in grants to charitable organizations here, primarily in Broward County. So I oversee a team that manages all the grant making. And then I also am responsible for research and uncovering issues in our community where the Community Foundation could play a role by being a leader on the issue or through our grant making. And sometimes it's a combination of both. So the foundation is just such a dynamic organization. We do still have the Nonprofit Center, which is run by Kathy Brown. So I still oversee the Nonprofit Center and am allowed to give advice, if you will, to Kathy on various programs and services that we offer to nonprofits to build their capacity. And then a good amount of my work is working with other foundations, institutions on partnerships and collaborations for the foundation. That also includes private foundations, seeing how we can align our missions around some of the critical work to enlarge the pool of dollars that we can disseminate in this community. So I spend a lot of time with others who are in this same space, really trying to help the foundation become a go-to resource.
Just the evolution since I've been doing the podcast for 3 years now. is amazing how much you are so integral to the community, and you are initiating programs and always looking for new ways to do things and new partnerships. And, that leads me into this whole issue of health equity. Healthy, thriving communities are such a key issue of import to the Community Foundation of Broward. And there are so many different aspects when you talk about a healthy, thriving community. Can you talk about some of the various components that make a healthy, thriving community?
Absolutely, Ellen. A healthy and thriving community is not just focused on traditional health. It is focused on the intersection of issues that would enable a person to live a healthy lifestyle, a healthy life, and to thrive. And so the Community Foundation of Broward, a few years ago, during the time of the pandemic, we initiated health hubs across Broward County. The first one was in South Broward, whereas through the pandemic, food insecurity became a real issue. So we were trying to see where is it most prevalent, and our research led us to South Broward. And it was all about collective impact to address food insecurity. But what we learned was that there were more issues that bubbled up as a result of providing food to our residents. And so we evolved the hubs to be more inclusive across what's called the social determinants of health. And those social determinants of health run across a variety of issues, from education to health to mental health. We mentioned food and nutrition, education, workforce. All those issues are what make a person whole and healthy. So as we look at these health hubs across Broward County, they are encompassing a variety of issues that the community where the health hub is located, that community is helping to define what they want to focus on.
That answers a question I had about how you determine where you're going to put a health hub, then what services that hub will offer. And, as you just said, you research it. You reach out to communities that you've determined are in need, or do they reach out to you?
Initially, we were reaching out and developing the health hubs based on our research. We were looking at zip codes, they're called promise zip codes, which are primarily the zip codes here in Broward County that have some of the worst indicators around health, education, healthcare, employment, et cetera. So based on that research, we identified there were like 4 areas throughout Broward County that were lacking access to services and programs compared to other parts of the community. And so we decided we would locate the health hubs, one in the south, one in the north. The north area is very challenged when it comes to programs and services coming in that community, particularly Pompano Beach, Deerfield Beach. Then we looked at kind of like Central West, which is Lauderhill. And those became really the focal points for the health hubs. And each of those health hubs, it's all centered around the community's input. So the residents have to be at the table and inform the agency leaders about what's going on in the community. What are they seeing? What are they hearing? What's working? What's not working? And based upon that, the organization uses that intel to create or expand programming into that community. We would not go into a community and tell the community what they need. The helicopter flying in, here's some money, here's some programs, and then bolting out of there. That doesn't work anymore for these communities. They're a lot smarter. They have a lot of self-advocacy, if you will. They're not quietly sitting by and letting things happen in their communities anymore. They speak up. And if you're not listening, you won't be allowed to come into that community to deliver programs and services with them.
And so you have nonprofits that you partner with as kind of the liaison between you and the public. How do you select who's going to partner with you?
So that selection process is pretty rigid. And really what we're looking for is an organization that already has a footprint in a community. If an organization is not aware of who the players are or leaders are in that community, they don't have any connections, they don't have a built-in network in that community, it's highly likely they won't be accepted. And if they are accepted, it may not go very far. What we've learned is that many of these communities are very close-knitted. Neighbors know neighbors in these communities. And so they vet you out based upon what the neighborhood leaders say about you. And if they don't know you, they're very suspicious and they won't really give you a chance to come in and work deeply with them because they don't trust. I've heard this phrase at conferences I've gone to, so now I've stolen it. Relationships are built at the speed of trust. And that is really true. And the communities are open to the conversation, but you do have to build the trust before you could get in deeply with them. And in the communities, they become your key informant. So it doesn't matter what you're reading in the paper. They have firsthand information to share. And that is what you act upon when you're working in these communities.
What are some of the differences that you find across the different communities in terms of their needs?
We have seen a range of issues the communities address. For example, in Lauderhill, their hub mainly focused on crime reduction. They had community groups organized in different sections of Lauderhill that were high crime areas. And the intent was to convene the residents, especially the young people, and to create like a peace strategy so that people knew each other, could talk to each other in a room without there being any kind of beef. In the community, they call it without beef, right? To squash the beef, that these different neighborhoods might have within those neighborhoods. And so it was a lot of community gathering and meeting up and having conversations and creating ways where residents and younger people who were a part of some of the criminal activities in those communities, getting them together to understand the humanity of each other, I would say. And so that was a critical issue in Lauderhill. When we put the health hub in Pompano, we started that health hub at Markham Elementary School. That school was a neglected school for the most part, sitting, off the side of the road, if you will, with a chain, rusty fence around it. And you see these kids, running out and you're like, wow, what's going on over there? And what we learned was that school was pretty much 99% immigrant population, non-English speaking, struggle to get the attention as other schools in terms of programs and services, and just the facility itself, the school building itself was kind of last on the list when it came to the renovations and so forth. So we went into the school and partnered with the principal to bring in the health hub resources, and it really took off like we wouldn't believe. Those kids were some of the best kids you could imagine being on a school campus, so well behaved. And they were struggling because of the language deficits and so forth, but just really great kids that needed some additional help. And we brought that into that school. So that one was focused on education. And as a result of our work there, Markham Elementary went from an F school to a B school.
That's fantastic. And it's basically, you said, when you find the humanity, you realize doesn't matter where you come from, you're a human being. And especially with children, when you treat them in a certain way, they will give that back.
And they absolutely did. The parents, they had very low parent engagement. Once the health hub began at Markham, the parent engagement went through the roof. There were so many different services they could connect to, for healthcare, financial education, literacy support, homework, just an array of programs and services that were being offered by community partners. In our lead agency, Community-Based Connections, their staff were like boots on the ground at that school. So they were like the eyes and ears and able to provide the additional help that the principal needed because they had a very lean staff. But the kids started showing back up to school. The attendance improved 95%. 98% of the kids were promoted to the next grade. 80% of the kids improved in their math and reading. So that education focus, it really paid off some great dividends at Markham. We've now evolved that to the high school area, Blanchie High School, my alma mater, through a special initiative that is offered through the state of Florida, the Florida Children's Initiative. We're bringing that to Broward County. We actually were approved to be included in the state statute 409.147 this legislative session. So the Florida Children's Initiative is basically a version of a health hub where you're working in a community from cradle to career and beyond to ensure that community has all the resources it needs to ensure that children thrive.
That is wonderful. How did people find out about the health hubs in their community?
The lead agencies that we partner with, they are key to the marketing of the health hub and the resources that are offered. And they use a variety of ways to do that. We know that many of them have connections with their city governments. The churches are a huge, huge place for advertising the programs and services. Other nonprofit agencies they're partnered with. So there are tentacles out there in the community. Many of them also hold various convenings and distributions, food distributions where people see like, hey, what's going on over there? And they inquire and learn that there's more to it than what meets the eye. It's very much a hands-on community marketing strategy.
Right. Well, in a moment, I'm going to be speaking with Joel Smith.
Yes. Yes.
See, everybody knows you and you know everybody.
Yes.
He is with Deerfield Beach Community Cares, and they're the key partner organization for the help up there. And from what I understand, their challenges are unique, and we'll talk to Joel about that. Is there anything else you want our listeners to know before we move on to Joel?
Yes, I would. I would like to encourage our nonprofit community and other nonprofit institutions, if they are interested in starting a health hub. Broward has 31 different municipalities, and there are the at promise zip codes. There are so many zip codes where there are pockets of families and individuals who need support and need help. And many of them may not have interface with a social service agency because we take for granted that, oh, yeah, everybody knows about social services to get help, but that's not true. Most people don't know about social services. So if an organization wants to start a health hub, they can approach the Community Foundation through our new joint application grant process that we launched this year. And it requires that you have 2 or more partners working together to address a critical issue or critical issues in the community. And if it involves residents, bringing residents together, then that's a plus that could qualify it as a health hub. But they would be able to at least get the idea before the foundation for consideration if they would like to be considered.
And you can find that on the website at cfbroward.org.
Yes, our new grant guidelines will be published this summer around July, and more information will be in those grant guidelines.
Spread the word. The work you're doing is so great. Sherry Brown Grosvenor, Vice President of Community Impact for the Community Foundation of Broward. It is such a delight to talk to you, and I hope you'll come back and explain things again as simply and beautifully as you do.
Anytime you ask, Ellen, I will be there.
Thank you, Sherry. Well, now that we have heard the background of the health hubs and how the Community Foundation partnered with organizations, let's take a look at what it's like when a health hub is up and running and making a difference in the community. CEO of Deerfield Beach Community Cares, Joel Smith, the main liaison with the Community Foundation of Broward in setting up one of their first health hubs in Broward County, and takes a lot of time, a lot of caring, and certainly a big commitment. Joel, thank you for being with us. How did your path bring you to this place, and what motivates you to keep doing this kind of work?
Sure, I'll do my best and try to be as concise as I can be. I retired from Broward County Schools, where I was the director of dropout prevention, and have also had the dual opportunity to be a funder on the Children's Services Board, so that I've had an opportunity to understand the whole life of people and how you can't effectively help them on their arc of wellness journey if you separate the pieces of the life, or the pieces of the family life, or the pieces of the community life. And that led me to create Deerfield Beach Community Cares. And how that came about, 6 years ago, we lost a young adult to death by suicide in Deerfield Beach. And I am well known, I guess, in our community in the world of trauma and death by suicide. And I did not know the young man, nor did I know his family. But it followed on the heels of what happened at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. And of course, that was a tremendous, tremendous tragedy. And I want to be very careful to say that every bit of services and resources that flowed to that community to support the people who survived the tragedy and lived through those times is absolutely appropriate. At the same time, there are lots of communities in Broward County that are not as well off as the Parkland Coral Springs community, and there's trauma that exists all the time. So when we lost this young man, I was concerned that some of the set of resources did not flow in the same way. Yes, it's one young person versus 17, but conceptually the response to trauma. And then what happened was 2 weeks later, I got a call from the county commissioner for North Broward for Deerfield Beach area, and the same day from Nora Rupert, the school board representative, about another family. And I did not know the young lady, but because of the work I've done through the years, I was able not to get them resolution, but to kind of ask the questions, are they getting the help that they need? Unfortunately, Alexis Marion took her life in exactly the same way 6 weeks later. They both died by train. And that was the linchpin for me to make a change in my direction, in addressing the idea that these young people were part of a culture, a system, a set of families that were hurting and in pain, and whose arc of wellness journey was not being successful. So I did not live in Deerfield Beach. I actually lived in the south part of the county, but I just started to come up here every day and talk to people. And I had the great good fortune to have a funder write me a check to start Deerfield Beach Community Cares, who really believed in the concept. I didn't call it a community health hub at that time. What I called it was I wanted to be not issue-based, but place-based. I wanted to come to the community and listen to the population of the community and respond to what the community said. So if my passion and concern were death by suicide, but the community's response was, we're concerned about our elderly and diabetes, that's where you start. You build engagement, you build credibility. And I have a firm belief that people don't die by suicide if there's hope involved. If you create a climate of hope, it's the antidote. So my whole mission was to understand what the community was saying and respond to it. So we started, it was just me, no funding other than this one check. But things started to happen. I had a woman walk into my office and put her finger at me and say, I want you to start bike clubs. That wasn't on my radar, but she made a convincing case. By this time, I had a memo of understanding with the city. They gave me a park, which was reserved for me between 10 and 12 on Saturday. They gave me a shipping container to put the bikes in. I then went to the United Way and explained what I was trying to do, and they said, we'd like to help you. So I gave them a figure, and they gave it to me. Now, it's not that I'm that good looking. It's not that I have that much charisma. You know, the money was available, and they were looking for a good thing to do with it. So jumping ahead 4.5 years later, we've now facilitated 8 iterations of this bike club because the community asked for it. We teach 15 to 20 kids bike safety, which they don't care about, but they learn it. Bike repair, which they do care about. And then they ride. They do obstacle courses, play bike soccer. They have health and wellness pledge. And at the end of the 8-week session, we buy them a bike and a helmet. So, and it's of their choice. So we've had about 150 kids go through this project at this point. And then the Community Foundation put out an RFP opportunity, which they were calling the Big Think.
Okay.
Well, if you know me and someone says something like that, I'm going to say, we can come up with an idea.
Right.
And so what we did was we wrote exactly for what we were trying to do exactly what I've just been explaining, to listen to the community and to respond to the community with the understanding, Ellen, that I want to tell you that I believe I can do everything and my people can do everything. But I know that's not true.
Right.
But what I do believe is we have the wherewithal to bring the right players to the table to do that thing that we don't do, to bring that skill set to the community when that's needed so that that person or that family's or that subset of the community's arc of wellness journey is impaired. There's some resource together to do it. And so we wrote for that and adopted the term Community Health Hub, which I love. And that's really been the genesis of how we started.
It's exactly what Sherry spoke about. You can't go to community leaders and say, what does the community need? You have to speak to the people directly and then respond with what they're telling you so they know they're being heard. It shows the simpatico that you and Sherry both bring to the project. And that, I believe, is only part of the reason why they have been so receptive. It's also that when they come to you and you're listening, you then respond with action. You're an angel to these people. I'm like,
not to my wife.
We can do a separate interview with her. I'll let our listeners believe. So what changes have you seen in the people who are taking advantage of Health Hub services?
As we started to do a variety of things in the community, we would have dinners and conversations. Sometimes we get 30 people, sometimes we get 3 people. We put on an annual community fair, which is actually huge. It comes up in September. We do a variety of things. But in talking to people, the key thing, the cost of living and so forth, is food. It's hard to change the trajectory of a person's life when their belly's empty.
Yes.
So I went to my partners here where I'm situated at Zion Lutheran Church, and I said, I'd like to start a food pantry. And they said to me, as usual, Joel, you're really crazy. But we think it's a great idea. So together, with some partnership from Flippity and some funding from the Children's Services Council, we have one of the largest neighbor choice food pantries in Broward County. We distribute more than 8,000 pounds of food every Saturday. And it's, as I said, neighbor choice. You get a shopping cart and you shop. that creates a climate where we're very touchable. First of all, you're meeting an immediate need. And second of all, I want that morning to be a community. I want that morning to be an opportunity. We bring Broward Health here. We offer all kinds of other providers the opportunity to set up a table, to be here, to talk to people. We know that people struggle. If Ellen is a struggling person and comes in to us for whatever reason, and we send you to XYZ agency, and you are not immediately embraced, you're turned off. And so you lose faith in the opportunity of getting help. The help itself becomes unavailable to you. You set your own barrier because of all the frustration and lack of hope and help you've had in the past. So it's about bringing help to the people rather than forcing the people to go find the help. And I think that's a critical piece of what a community health hub needs to do.
Yeah. You mentioned how the Community Foundation put out this request for grant opportunities. How has partnering with the Community Foundation helped you facilitate not just the creation of the Health Hub, but the ongoing service that you're providing?
And that's really important. First of all, during the process before which we were awarded the money, the conversation was helpful because our vision and their vision was similar in many ways, but maybe not in every way. So creating clarity of understanding was really important. Another piece is you get the check. You don't have to provide a response every month and get reimbursed for the money. So it takes the pressure off of creating a climate to do the work and doing the work. And then with my contract manager, I have, I think, a very symbiotic and synergistic relationship. We've had a lot of conversations. I have felt great support, like a partnership. The other part of it I think is wonderful is the ancillary services that they provide in the sort of nonprofit university that Kathy Brown facilitates and how it gives us an opportunity to come together. The opportunity exists to pick and choose what's right for your organization and participate and then build your skill set because of that. That's been remarkably supportive.
Obviously, this is working extremely well. How do you reach the people in Deerfield Beach? How do they find out that you are there with the Health Hub?
We do a number of things. Number one, because of the food pantry, we really have no problem reaching people. But aside from that, we do a number of things in the community. We target specific areas of the community that we think are critically important. We've set up like every 2-week pizza night at the Housing Authority property so that people would gain trust in what we do, would feel comfortable sharing what they need. We have a box truck, one of the few pieces of property that we have, so that if someone in the Housing Authority or anyone else needs furniture moved, again, it's about solving problems. We are involved in senior work in the community. We're involved in supporting some American Legion post activity. Everywhere we need to be, we're not big enough. I don't have enough staff people to do it, but we're out there in a very overt way. The other thing is, and I'm not really very skilled at the politics because I just have a very big mouth and I have very little filter involved in that. I'm trying to be more mature, but it's not working very well. But I'm very involved with the commissioners and, those kinds of activities. And of course, as things come up in the community, backpack days or whatever it might be that are important to Deerfield Beach and now Pompano, because we're embedded in Pompano as well. We participate and we're out there.
How can people reach you, whether they want to ask for a service, get details about the bike program or the food pantry, or maybe they want to volunteer or make a donation to help you grow?
They can certainly reach out to us at our website, www.dfbcommunitycares.org. We have a generic phone number, which is 954-289-2661. And honestly, I give everybody my cell phone number and I respond to everybody. And I'm willing to give that to you, 954-665-6249. I only ask that people text rather than phone, so I have some context before I return the call. And there are times when I'll get a call and it'll be about a specific thing that rather than me returning the call myself, I'll give it to one of my people who works in that particular area.
Okay. And finally, would you like to tell your wife you love her and you're going to find time for her?
I do love her, and she actually has been here with me virtually every Saturday We call her the baby boss because she gives out the diapers.
Well, you are taking care of an entire community, birth to seniors, and I love what you're doing, and the Community Foundation of Broward could not be more proud to be partnered with you. Joel Smith, Deerfield Beach Community Cares, and it's dfbcommunitycares.org.
Yes, ma'am.
Absolutely.
Thank you for sharing this time with me. Come on up and visit.
Would love to. All right. It is so exciting to not only have spoken to Sherry Brown Grosvenor from the Community Foundation of Broward and Joel Smith with Deerfield Beach Community Cares, but we've got Kirk Engelhardt back, our Vice President of Marketing and Communications at the Community Foundation of Broward. Kirk's Corner, how are you?
I'm doing great, Ellen. Thank you. This is really exciting. I've been wanting to have us do an episode on health hubs for the longest time. What's interesting to me about these health hubs is they're very specific to the community where they exist. And it really is all about the community at the most basic level, listening to the people who live there, figuring out what the issues are in that particular community, not the issues that are necessarily the most popular or the sexiest issues to talk about, but the real issues. What are people struggling with? Can they not get food from a local supermarket? Is transportation an issue? Are there doctors there that they can go to? Are there food pantries? Are there the resources that they really need? And if the resources are there, can they access them? And you only really know this when you talk to the people who live in a particular area, whether it's South Broward, where we have a health hub, or Lauderhill, or Pompano Beach, or Deerfield Beach. I think you go into any of those parts of our community, parts of our county, and you'll see that there are some very different needs there. I mean, there are always common things that humans need across the board, but in some areas, they have a little bit more of something, a little bit less of something, different challenges, and all of that needs to be factored in. Now, when you think about it, there's a lot of nonprofit organizations out there as well. So how can we, through these health hubs, bring these organizations together so that there's not necessarily overlap, but there's partnership? I remember a story early on where in one part of our county, there were a bunch of food pantries that had a lot of extra refrigeration capacity. They had all these big freezers and big refrigerators that were empty, but we had food pantries in another part of that area that had an excess of food that they couldn't refrigerate. How do you identify those partnerships where you get that food preserved and you could feed so many more people instead of having it spoil? And that's without having to make a huge investment of dollars in new refrigeration units or that sort of thing. Eliminating duplication, but creating partnerships that are smart so that organizations that might one day think that they have to compete with each other realize that their mission is the same. If they partner together, they can help a whole lot more people.
This is one of the beautiful things that you guys at the Community Foundation do, which is because you are on site with these organizations and meeting all of the people, you're able to make those connections.
Well, I think if you take the time to drive around our community, and I talk about, Broward County as the community, not just east of 95, not just west of I-75, but you really drive around this entire county, you'll see that we have the wealthiest of the wealthy, but we also have the poorest of the poor right here in our county, right in your next door neighbor, a couple streets over, is suffering when you may not be. So the whole idea of how do we talk to people and listen to people and see what those needs are and connect the dots in a way that makes sense so that we're not wasting money, we're putting it to use in the most effective way so that the most people can be helped. And that's why since 2020, we put $1.5 million into these health hubs. And I think health hub might be a little bit of a misnomer too, because it's not only about physical health, being a healthy person, having a healthy body, but it's about your mental health. It's about the health of the community. It's about living in a place where you feel safe, where you feel comfortable, where you feel welcome, where you feel like, oh, I've got what I need right here.
Right.
I don't have to go someplace else to get it. When we say health hubs, that's what we're talking about. And the beautiful thing of this is that our fund holders can get involved in these health hubs in many, many different ways, because whether your interest is in creating a safer environment, whether your interest is in community gardens or doing away with food deserts or providing transportation so that people with cancer can get to their cancer treatment. So I encourage all of our fund holders and anybody else who wants to support a healthy community to talk to us, because we can certainly engage them in this work. And there's a lot of good that philanthropy can do to change the lives of people in our community who just need that little bit of help to become truly healthy.
Well, I would suggest that anyone who feels motivated by this, go to your website, cfbroward.org.
One of the easiest ways to find information about health hubs and about how you can engage in that work at the Community Foundation, search health hubs in the search box. Lots of information out there. We're also one email, one phone call away. So don't hesitate to reach out to us if you have ideas for how you can maybe engage your own organization or organizations you care about in this work, or if you're a fund holder, philanthropist that wants to contribute and support this work. We would love to hear from you.
Okay, cfbroward.org. And please join us on Bold Voices. Check back to our YouTube page. Look for the links on LinkedIn at any time to see when the newest podcast is published. We have some great things lined up for you in the coming months, and we look forward to you being a part of our efforts at the Community Foundation of Broward. Thank you for listening, and please remember to always lead with love.
Thank you for listening to Bold Voices. We hope you've enjoyed this episode and hope you'll be inspired to join us in creating a better Broward for all. If you'd like more information, visit us online at cfbroward.org, and remember to always be bold.